The House will come to order. Today's Pledge of Allegiance is by Adeline Krappenhoft, C3, Pal Krappenhoft, and they're both from Denver, Colorado, and they're guests of Representative Garnett.
Could you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Representatives Arndt, Baker J, Baker K, Beckman, Benavides, Benavides,
Excused.
Bridges, Buck, Buckner,
Okay, so here,
Carver,
this is what we're going to do today.
Catlin,
You're with this group.
Coleman, Covarrubias, Danielson,
Kind of a rocky start.
Escar, Everett, Exum, Foot, Garnett, Garnett,
Excused.
Janal, Gray, Gray, Hamner, Hanson, Harrod, Putin, Humphrey, Jackson, Kennedy, Kraft Tharp, Representative Kraft Tharp,
Excused.
Landgraf, Lawrence, Lee, Leonard, Lewis, Lewis,
Excused.
Liston, Lontine, Lundeen, McKean, McLaughlin, Melton, Michelson Janae. Representative Kraft Tharp is present. Michelson Janae.
Excused.
Neville. Representative Benavides is present. Pabon. Pedersen. Representative Michelson Janae is present. Pedersen.
No, those are not her highlights. Honey, don't look at us like we're here. She here? Okay, no, she's not
Excused.
Rankin. Ransom. Ryer. Roberts. Rosenthal. Sane. Salazar. Sandridge. Zayas. Singer. Thurlow. Valdez. Van Winkle. Weissman. Willett. Williams. Wilson. Representative Garnett is present. Winkler. Winter. Wist. Young. Madam Speaker.
Here. Representative Young, when you have a second, can you come up here? With 63 present and 2 excused, we do have a quorum. Good morning, Representative Catlin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's an honor to serve with you.
It's an honor to serve with you too, Representative Catlin.
Colleagues, if I could have your attention.
All right. Representative Catlin.
I have the distinct honor this morning of asking you to approve the journal, but before we do that, I'd like to share something that I used to share my days with. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I try to live by that, and thank you very much for letting me speak. Madam Speaker, I move that the reading of the Journal of Friday, April 20th, 2018, be dispensed with and approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk.
Thank you, Representative Catlin. Members, you have heard the motion. All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying no. That motion passes. Wow, Representative Catlin, that's the first time I think there was a unanimous motion to approve the journal. Nicely done. Perhaps we should, it's too late. Perhaps we should start every day with that prayer. Further announcements and introductions. Representative McLaughlin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to introduce you to my sister who's here visiting today. So stand up there. She didn't want to sit down, so her name is Nancy. Hi, sister.
Further announcements or introductions. Representative Escar and Representative Arndt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, don't forget, I hope you packed your jeans. Wednesday, pay us $5 and you get to wear jeans.
Thank you. Yes, colleagues, the envelope's on my desk. I'm not keeping track or taking, just please to put money in there and you'll be on your honor. If you've deposited $5 or more, you can wear denim on Wednesday.
And members, this is, it is Colorado Denim Day, which CICASA puts on to make sure that we promote freedom from sexual violence on all aspects. So $5, wear jeans on Wednesday, great cause. Thank you.
You really want to do that? Representative Arndt.
All right, members, I don't know if we, can we have your attention, please? I don't want to take this whole thing too seriously about the chili and all.
I do.
Except for a couple texts and pictures were going around yesterday when some of us were getting ready to win on Tuesday. And then there were some responses. And then there were some more pictures and some more texts. And one of my colleagues, one of my favorite colleagues, formerly favorite colleagues, when I sent her a picture of what I was doing, she said, looks like you might get a participation ribbon on Tuesday afternoon. So I started thinking that maybe we should have a little prize. We already have awards. Well, this is going to be the Buck Arndt Participation Award. So be sure to bring your food. You can have it now.
Representative Buck.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I have to tell you, this little small power of dynamite just got this from running a half marathon. So, yeah, yay is right. So congratulations for getting...
Participation.
You got it done, girlfriend. Thank you.
Representative McCain.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just, if it's the Buck Aren't participation ribbon, that's the BARNT, and that's one letter away from burnt. Oh. I understand the fear of failure. I just don't know what it is. And so chances are that you will be giving that medal, to me, and I'm not sure does it go with what I have on today or tomorrow? Oh, it's from New Belgium. Do we have anything else?
Further announcements or introductions? Representative Sane.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And so, since we're talking about chili, I just want to let you know we need to make sure that if you are entering the contest, you need to get that information to us by tonight because we are printing out the ballots.
Also, members on this side of the aisle, we need 4 judges. So if you're interested, I need you to come let me know. And if there's more than 4, we'll draw names out of a hat. But everybody will get to sample chili. There will be only a specific number of judges.
That's right. And we
Representative Sane.
And we do have some special guests coming as 2 of our unaffiliated judges, so this will be a nice surprise for you. And then I also need 4 judges on this side for the Republican side.
Further discussion? Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, tomorrow morning, 7:15 downstairs, we're having the Bible study. We also have a special prayer time before we do the Bible study. We're going to add indigestion to that list in the morning. So those of you that are participating in the chili cook-off, we'll have you covered.
Further announcements or introductions? Madam Speaker Pro Tem. Further announcements or introductions? Madam Speaker Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We're joined today by a special group of folks from, I think from all over the state, many different chapters of them, the Family Leadership Training Institute, and I understand there's going to be a number of people addressing them today. But I wanted to introduce the group from Jefferson County, who is seated along this side of the chamber, and if you could please stand and be recognized. The leadership program is for adults and youth ages 11 through 17, offered by the CSU Extension. FTLI includes program solving, civic skills, networking, media relations, meeting elected leaders, learning about government, public speaking, and lots of great food and fun. And so for the Jefferson County FTLI, thank you so much for being here, and welcome.
All right. Thank you, and welcome to the Capitol. Further announcements and introductions. Representative Arndt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And
Representative Buck.
we know there's so many people from the Family Leadership Training Institute here today, and so we have had a formal tribute written up. And Mr. Randall, if you could read that briefly, and I think it explains our appreciation for what you bring every day to Colorado.
Okay, hold on one second. Members, we do have a tribute this morning. Can we please have your attention? Mr. Randall, please read the tribute for the Family Leadership Institute.
The Senate and House of Representatives convened in the 71st General Assembly hereby extend sincere commendations to the Family Leadership Training Institute. The Family Leadership Training Institute is a first-of-its-kind, nonpartisan family civics program that helps participants to develop skills needed to become effective leaders in their communities. FLTI is a full immersion experience of civics, leadership, and self. Participants from all walks of life spend 120 hours attending a 20-week curriculum that integrates personal development, leadership training, diversity and cultural humility, civic literacy, and civic participation skills. They also develop civic projects that make a significant impact within their local communities by addressing their community's toughest issues. FLTI believes that inclusive leadership development and civic education opportunities increase human, social, and community capital leading to be more positive policy and system changes. The members of the Colorado House of Representatives and Colorado Senate are proud to recognize the Family Leadership Training Institute and applaud their efforts in developing engaged and effective family and community leaders for our state. on request of Representative Jenny Arndt and Senator John Kafalas, given this 23rd day of April 2018, State Capitol in Denver.
Welcome them. You're going to welcome yours? Yep.
All right, discussion on the tribute. Representative Beck.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I have to tell you, I have gone to their graduation and I've heard their stories. They do a tremendous job, and I can speak for Patty Schmidt's group and the Fort Collins Family Leadership Training Institute. And thank you for all that you do. Appreciate it.
Further discussion. Representative Herod.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I want to just give a special shout out to the 5 Points group right here in Denver. Under the leadership of Mr. Benzel Jimerson, you have done so much great work. I want to say thank you for making our communities so much stronger, and really going from a whole family perspective makes so much difference. So will the 5 Points class please stand up, please? And those on the floor. Thank you for being here.
Representative Michelson-Janae.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, members, for this incredible morning with these amazing people that are in our chamber. Throughout the session, different FLTI groups have had their days that they've come down here, and some of you know that I used to work for PLTI, which is the kind of overarching where this stemmed from one day, the Parent Leadership Training Institute. And so I know that the goal of this group is to work on matters of family and how do we create legislation that really represents family. It's not right, it's not left, it's family, and I'm so grateful that you're here. Thank you for being here.
Representative Valdez. And Representative Sayes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, tomorrow morning we're having a legislative breakfast for all professional surveyors of Colorado. So we'd like you to attend at 7 a.m. at Old Supreme Court chambers.
Representative Sayes.
And thank you, Madam Speaker, and to echo my colleagues' comments, come and remember, see if you can answer the quiz. Do you know which of the presidents on Mount Rushmore were surveyors? Answer tomorrow morning. Hope we see you.
Thank you.
Further announcements or introductions. Assistant Majority Leader Garnett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I have a constituent on the floor today, Adelaide Krabenhoft, who won the Denver Arbor Day fifth grade poster contest that's sponsored by the Colorado Tree Coalition. And if you check this out, she researched every tree that she painted here, and at the top it says promote diversity, which is pretty awesome. And I'm just really proud that she is in House District 2, and I'm just proud to say that she's on the floor, and if we could all just give her a round of applause. Adelaide, please stand.
Representative Landgraf.
Thank you. I wanted to compliment her on her beautiful picture, but I also wanted to remind everybody that today at noon is the Veterans Caucus. We're going to be talking about veterans trauma courts, and it's going to be downstairs in room 112, or however they number them. The one downstairs on this side. I'll see you at noon.
Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good morning, everyone. We have a birthday to celebrate. It was actually yesterday, but it's one of our members, and we have a tradition of honoring our birthdays when they fall during the legislative session. So I'd like to call down the Capitol Choir. It looks like it's Representative Wilson and me today. We'll have a little duet. What do you think? Oh, here we go. We have the Capitol Choir making their way down to the well to wish Representative Benavidez a happy birthday from yesterday. Did you know it was your birthday yesterday?
Did you know?
Did you? All right. Well, happy birthday. Members, are we ready?
We're ready.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Representative Benavidez. Happy birthday to you.
Further announcements or introductions? Going once, Representative Buck.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, very much. I just want to give everyone's attention to the gallery up there for the Cottonwood Plains Elementary. Welcome to the Capitol. Welcome to your house. Thank you very much for being here.
Further announcements or introductions? Going once, going twice. With that, Madam Majority Leader Becker.
Oh. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Need some water.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to proceed out of order for the consideration of general order, second reading of bills.
All right, seeing no objection, we'll proceed out of order for the immediate consideration of second reading of bills, general orders. And Representative Kraft-Tharp, good morning. All right, members, you have heard the motion. All right, seeing no objection, Representative Kraft-Tharp will take the chair.
The committee will come to order. With your unanimous consent, the bills will be read by title unless there is a request for reading a bill at length. Committee amendments will not be read unless requested. They are printed and in your bill folders and on your iPads. Floor amendments will be shown on the screen and not read unless requested. Bills will be laid over upon motion of the majority leader, and the court rule is relaxed. Mr. Randall, let's read the title of Senate Bill 156.
Senate Bill 156 by Senator Cook, House Representative Kennedy, concerning the publication of fiscal information by a county.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over Senate Bill 156 one day.
Upon the request of the Majority Leader, Senate Bill 156 will be laid over one day. Mr. Randall, now let's read the title of House Bill 1179.
House Bill 1179 by Representative Salazar, concerning a prohibition against price gouging on certain prescription drugs.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over House Bill 1179 till Wednesday, April 25th.
Okay, upon request of the Majority Leader, House Bill 1179 will be laid over until Wednesday, April 25th. Mr. Randall, let's read the title of Senate Bill 68.
Senate Bill 68 by Senator Cook, House Representatives Van Winkle and Bridges, concerning criminalizing false reports and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Representative Van Winkle, it's yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 68 and the Appropriations Committee report.
And the Judiciary Report also?
Yes, ma'am, and the Judiciary report also.
To the Appropriations Report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Added an appropriation. I ask for a yes vote.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the Appropriations Committee report? Seeing none, all in favor of the Appropriations Committee report, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Appropriations Committee report passes. To the Judiciary report. Representative Van Winkle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Judiciary Committee took this bill through a couple of hearings and made some nice improvements to the bill, so I ask for a yes vote.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of the Judiciary Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Judiciary Committee report passes. To the bill, Representative Van Winkle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, members, I bring before you Senate Bill 68. It's my honor to work with Representative Bridges on this very important task. This addresses a gap in our current law that does not cover the false reporting of an emergency, specifically the false report of a swatting incident. It is a very dangerous practical joke, swatting is, and for those of you who don't know, it's when someone calls in a fake report about an active shooter situation, hostage situation, something like that. This last December, a swatting prank occurred in Wichita, Kansas, and results in the death of an innocent man. In the middle of the night, the Wichita police received a call about a homicide and ongoing hostage situation. Wichita SWAT promptly responded to the scene. When the confused, sleepy, and dazed owner of the house did not follow their orders, he was shot and killed. The SWAT team that believed they were responding to a dangerous situation with a crazed gunman. It turned out to be a completely fabricated story by someone in California. But this isn't the first incident like this. And with our bill, hopefully it will be one of the last, because this has occurred in multiple states, including right here in Colorado. This is a dangerous practical joke that leads to damage, panic, and the loss of life. There was an incident in Littleton, Colorado. My colleague, I'm sure, will go more deeply into. But members, I ask for your support of Senate Bill 68 to address this ridiculous prank and save some lives.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Representative Bridges.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I first learned about swatting a few years ago from my little brother, who was an avid gamer. And what happens is they're online, they're playing Call of Duty or some other shared online game, and there's someone else in this game who's doing really well, who's doing better than the person who is getting upset, getting killed by this person in the game scenario over and over. And so rather than take it out in the game, they call 911. And they say things like, "I just shot my dad. My mom and my little sister are in the closet, and if you don't send the cops right now, I'm going to shoot them. And if you don't get here within 5 minutes, I'm going to light the house on fire." And then the cops show up expecting that there's someone who's just killed his dad and is about to kill the rest of his family. And that's not a safe situation. This is incredibly dangerous. This is not a prank. Someone was killed in Kansas over this. People have been injured. People have been evacuated. This is not a prank. But the people who commit this kind of stuff talk to each other online. They have conversations. They brag about it. They put videos up on this stuff. And these people will know After this bill passes, they will talk about it, and they will know that in the state of Colorado, you do not commit this offense. In the state of Colorado, you don't call and do this to anyone, and they will also know that if the person that you are swatting lives in Colorado, you don't do that. People in Colorado will be safer because of this bill. People in Colorado will act better because of this bill, and I urge your support.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 68? Representative Wist.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank the sponsors of this bill. We had to do a little work in Judiciary Committee, but I think it's a fine piece of legislation. Members, this is a very serious issue that's happening across our country. It's important that Colorado address this to keep our law enforcement safe. So my thanks to the sponsors and urge an aye vote.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us, members, is the passage of Senate Bill 68. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Senate Bill 68 passes. Mr. Randall, let's read the title for House Bill 1297. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over House Bill 1297 till the end of the second reading calendar.
Thank you. So are there any objections? Seeing none, House Bill 1297 will be laid over as requested by the Majority Leader. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over Senate Bill 200 till tomorrow.
Are there any objections? Seeing none, Senate Bill 200 will be laid over as requested by the Majority Leader. Mr. Randall, let's go ahead and read the title for House Bill 1368.
House Bill 1368, Representatives Dannison and Melton, all Senators Merrifield and Moreno, concerning the repeal of the prohibitions on local governments enacting minimum wage laws.
Representative Melton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1368. There are no committee reports.
To the bill, Representative.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do you want to start? Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Members, 1368 is a bill that deals with local control. It allows local municipalities to raise the minimum wage above the state's minimum wage. This does not increase the minimum wage itself. It just gives the ability to localities to be able to do this in order to address different cost of living concerns across our state. As we know, here in the metro area, it's more expensive to live than, say, on the Eastern Plains or in some parts of other parts of the state. And so what we want is to be able to allow for local city councils or even ballot initiatives to be able to address those concerns and move us above just the floor of the minimum wage that we've set as a state. Again, we know that one size does not fit all in the state of Colorado, so this allows our localities to be more responsive. I ask for an aye vote.
Representative Danielson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We bring you this bill to allow local jurisdictions to decide for themselves in consultation with their community about their minimum wage laws. Colorado's economy is booming, but wages aren't keeping up with the growing cost of living. Allowing localities the option to set a minimum wage that works for their unique community will help lower poverty rates, which means an entire community's quality of life goes up. I urge an aye vote.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1368? Oh, Representative Thurlow.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members. Good morning, and thank you, members, for bringing the bill. I just wanted to talk about a little experience we had in my district over the last year. You know, we raised the minimum wage statewide on a progressive scale starting a couple of years ago, and it was a very interesting situation in our district. We have it's actually in Representative Willett's district. We have a Fruta Recreation Center that opened a couple of years ago. They provide a lot of minimum wage jobs. It's mostly high school students working at the swimming pool, giving lessons, doing different things, and doing it part-time and doing it after school. It's a good deal for them because it gets them started on a job, and they learn how to work and how to be on time and how to be responsible and things like that, and they make minimum wage. This last year, the Recreation Center had to raise their dues. And the reason that it was explained in the paper is they have minimum wage employees, and that costs have gone up, and now they have to raise their dues, which of course has an effect on all the people in the communities. And I know that's a general argument against the minimum wage at all, that it actually sometimes hurts the people that it's meant to help. because the recreation center, their only choice is to raise their dues, which of course affects everybody in the community, or the other option is to lay off some of their minimum wage workers, which obviously affects their minimum wage workers. Well, that's the general argument against the minimum wage. When you reduce that then to this bill, which is just to let every jurisdiction set their own minimum wage, I think the first argument is still good, that it hurts the people making the minimum wage in that district because overall it creates fewer jobs. And then the second really bad part of it is the confusion it creates around the state. If you have people trying to do business across the state and you've got different minimum wages in all the jurisdictions, it creates a real problem for them accounting-wise. Again, it drives up costs, and it probably incentivizes people to figure out solutions that use fewer minimum wage workers. And there are a lot of solutions that are available in the marketplace today. There are computerized ordering systems at restaurants, at McDonald's and Wendy's, where you can do away with minimum wage labor, and the higher you drive that cost, the more easy it is to make the decision to go to a mechanized system that eliminates the job. So I think it creates a lot of problems globally, and I think it creates an amazing amount of problems if we do that in our state for businesses that are trying to do business across the state. I would ask for a no vote.
Representative Ransom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I too would ask for a no vote on this bill. We heard a lot of testimony, and yes, we were told about people that can't make a living off of minimum wage. And we get that the minimum wage does not equal a living wage, but it's not supposed to. It does not equal a living wage, and it should not. Think about it. And some of the testimony we even got is that bills like this would prevent entry-level jobs and unskilled workers a chance to get started, to come in on the ground floor. I know I've spoken multiple times about the fact that my kids as teenagers always had jobs during high school and college, and they did not need a living wage. They were living at home. They were just trying to raise money to save money for college. They did not need a living wage, yet we keep being told that the minimum wage has to equal a living wage. And again, I rise to state that it does not need to equal that. It circumvents free markets. And the other thing that we heard from people coming in, business type groups, is that it will cause loss of jobs. And we don't want people to lose jobs. We want people to have jobs. And if the wages are lower than a living wage, then there are other options that people have to get jobs that will support them. And we still don't want to deny jobs to entry-level people that need them. Again, it circumvents free markets, and a minimum wage does not equal a living wage, nor should it. Again, I ask for a no vote on this bill.
Representative Liston.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Members, as you've heard, we heard this bill in Business Affairs and Labor here last week, and what I have here in front of me is if you really want to know how this type of legislation works in reality, we just need to look up in the city of Seattle, up in the state of Washington. Back in 2014, the city of Seattle did exactly what the bill proponents are advocating, and they mandatorily raised the minimum wage to $15 an hour, which is where it is right now. And what is occurring now is that in the city of Seattle, a study has been done. I have the study right here, academic study, very extensive, and the very people that they're trying to help are now being hurt. The workers in Seattle are losing almost 10% in the number of hours worked, and overall they're earning less money today than what they would have under the minimum wage. The reason being is that employers are finding that they cannot afford this $15 an hour minimum wage. So what are they doing? They are cutting back on the number of hours that their employees can work, or they're eliminating the jobs entirely. That's why when you go into various, whether it's fast food organizations or you go into a parking lot or other entry-level positions, is they just automate the positions because they find out that these positions can be done automatically with machines and technology. They don't go on strike, they don't get sick, they don't come in hungover, they don't go to 420 rallies, et cetera, et cetera. So if you really want to see how it works, just go to Seattle, talk to the workers. They're earning less, they're being paid less, and if we want to unleash this in Colorado, which I think that most cities do not, we heard extensive testimony from the NFIB, which represents over 7,000 employers. 7,000 employers. You multiply that by probably 4 or 5 or 10 employees, represents tens of thousands of employees. They don't support it. The Colorado Association of Commerce and Industry, they do not support this legislation. The South Metro Denver Chamber of Commerce, which represents tens of thousands of employees and employers, they do not support this. They might support this in Venezuela, and they might support this in other socialist countries.
Representative
But
Liston?
let's not do it here. I urge
To
a
the
no
bill,
vote.
Representative Liston. Thank you. And just for you to know, the bill was in local government, not business affairs. Representative Williams, you next. Representative Ryer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro
Representative.
Tem. I want to come to this bill as a no from a different perspective. All of us know that small businesses operate sometimes on a shoestring. Sometimes the owners don't even get paid. None of us, none of anybody knows exactly the bottom line or the financial statement, financial condition of any business, large or small. When we talk about small business, on a federal level, that's 500 employees and down. Where I am in southeastern Colorado, a small business is 5 to 10 employees. So an overzealous city council, an overzealous county commission, group of county commissioners can pass this, and the consequences be darned for those people that, number one, won't be able to hire anybody else, may have to lay people off, might even go out of business. We're allowing for unintended consequences if we pass this bill. I am a firm no on this one, and I ask everyone else to be as well.
Thank you, Representative Ryer. Representative Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise in opposition to this bill. Although generally speaking, we do agree that we should have local control, especially with most decisions, because when we have government closest to the people, it's more effective, it's more efficient, and it's more accountable. But with respect to this particular bill, as it relates to minimum wage, this does already hurt the people that it's supposed to be helping. Right now, currently in Colorado, we have the minimum wage law, and effectively what it does is it prevents and makes it unlawful for low-skilled and inexperienced applicants and employees to be able to actually negotiate a wage that they can actually negotiate and get based off of their own productivity and their ability to work, and that's a problem. Entry-level jobs are the ones that are being affected here mostly. And we see it all the time with respect to fast food chains, especially restaurants that are engaging more in automation. And that's because they simply can't afford to have these laws to have these laws in place. Businesses, in order to be profitable, they need to do two things, or one of each or both, and that's either raise their sales prices or reduce their costs. In this case, what we're seeing is businesses engaging in both. And so we're not only preventing businesses from being productive and being able to make a profit, but we're also preventing potential employees and applicants from actually being able to get a job. And so right now, as we see it, the minimum wage law is hurting, like I said, the people that they're supposed to be helping. And if we were to enact this particular law and allow local governments to increase those wages arbitrarily, then it's going to affect our employment rates and our job creations and our overall economy for the negative. So with that, Madam Chair, I move L002 to the bill, and I ask that it be displayed.
I like that amendment.
Yes.
The amendment is properly before us. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Essentially what this would do is it would allow employees or potential applicants to actually negotiate a wage with their employer and remove government from the overall equation. If we allow this to happen, we will allow businesses and individuals to be able to engage in the free market and negotiate a wage that they can actually earn based off their experience and their productivity. So I would urge a yes vote on this because it will actually help people be able to find jobs and be employed rather than not be employed.
Representative Danielson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The bill is concerning the repeal of the prohibitions on local governments enacting minimum wage laws. It doesn't fit within the title. I ask for a title ruling.
We will go into recess so I can hear discussion. House will come back to order. The chair rules that the amendment does not fall within the title. Representative Salazar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A very, very wise ruling, Madam Chair. I appreciate the wisdom of that ruling.
Not helpful, Representative Salazar.
Madam Chair, this bill, Madam Chair, is It's not about socialism. It's not about all those things, unintended consequences, none of those things. It just removes the prohibition for local governments to decide their own minimum wage. That's all it does. The unintended consequence, what can there be an unintended consequence for in this bill? What would that unintended consequence be? They decide to enact some type of minimum wage in their district. That's not unintended. That would be very much intended. By definition, there would be intent there to define minimum wage in their locality. And that's what we're trying to do, is give local control to the localities to decide if they want to have minimum wage in their local districts, which is kind of a big deal. Because I've been to Crested Butte and I've been to Telluride, and those are very expensive places to live. And so if they decided that they wanted to raise their minimum wage to, say, $12 an hour or $13 an hour, because that would attract more people to live in those areas, then that's what they would get to do, instead of having an artificial prohibition placed upon them by the state. That's all this bill does. It doesn't say, well, now the state of Colorado is forcing you to raise minimum wage in your areas. No, that bill has nothing to do with that. It just says, and even in Pueblo, that if Pueblo wants to raise their minimum wage, then they can do so. They could do it by will of the voter. They could do it by ordinance, through their city councils, through their county commissioners. They get to decide how they want to do that. I don't think this bill tells them how they can or cannot do that. So there's nothing unintended at all about this bill. It gives local governments local control back. That's all it does. So this has nothing to do with socialism. It actually has to do more about democracy than what it does socialism. That we're giving democracy back to local governments to decide how they want to handle things. That's how this works. And if you have a problem with that, we can go up to my office, and I have a book that talks about democracy, socialism, communism, all those kinds of things, just in case you get confused. So I rise in strong support of HB 1368.
Representative Rosenthal. Excuse me, there is no clapping in the chamber. Representative Rosenthal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I rise in support of House Bill 1368.
Representative Rosenthal, hang on a second. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your conversations to outside the chamber. Representative Rosenthal, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I rise in support of House Bill 1368, and I think it's important to note for the members and folks who are watching, the millions and millions of folks who are watching, that this bill is permissive. And again, all it does is says that if a local community wants to, now these are your local officials, your local city managers and city councils and mayors who are elected by the people, if they wish to, it would allow them to take this action to raise the minimum wage. And this is not about the state of Colorado coming in with a heavy hand and forcing them to do anything that they don't want. Now, in terms of the city of Denver, where I am, there's no official position, or my sense is, listening to a couple city council members, particularly Cashman and Kniech, having heard that, look, this is something that they would like to have. Perhaps they would like to offer this, but that would be all within the city of Denver, that they could have that discussion and make that decision whether they want to or not. So this would allow them to do that. So I think that it's something where we should, if we believe in local control, then this is what we should do. We should allow them to make that important decision, because people really are struggling out there. I hear it all the time. Number one issue is affordable housing. People cannot afford to live in the city, but it's not just the city of Denver. We talked recently about transportation and transit, and this feeds into that, because you simply cannot afford a place in places like Aspen and some of the mountain towns, etc. So they actually have to take transit into those towns in order to work. But if they were maybe making more money, then maybe they would be able to live in those locations. So I hope that the members will support this bill and that we will help our local communities make decisions as to where they would like to be in regards to minimum wage. Thank you.
Representative Winkler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The unintended consequences, we were just told that this isn't about unintended consequences. Well, I think it is about unintended consequences. The unintended consequence is to allow municipalities to hurt themselves. I just can't stand to the side and allow a municipality to pass a misguided law. Now, the reason that the minimum wage doesn't make any sense is because it's not really about cost of living and, oh, if we pay you this much, can you afford to live here or there? It's really about two consenting adults, presumably adults, negotiating what they want to pay. I have a question for everybody who doesn't like minimum wage or thinks it should be higher or really wants to push for strong minimum wage laws. What the heck is an apprenticeship? An apprenticeship is just a workaround to work for presumably less than minimum wage or less than whatever wage you want to pay, and then you say, oh, part of your pay is learning how to do the job or on-the-job training. What the heck is a first job if not learning how to work? We're going to allow unions to negotiate for their wages, but not individuals.
Representative Winkler, I'm giving you a lot of leeway here, but let's move back towards the topic of the bill, okay?
Okay, and again, I would just say, thank you, Madam Chair. And I would say we are going to allow misguided municipalities to hurt themselves if we allow this sort of law. And don't think there are no unintended consequences where small businesses will be closing and people will not be getting their first jobs to start, and young people won't be getting those first jobs in those municipalities if they're allowed to pass their own minimum wage legislation. I myself have hired people, and I allow them to tell me how much they want to be paid. If that's below a certain wage, if they give me an invoice that is below a certain wage, will I be charged with a crime now if I'm in one of these municipalities? Again, if we allow people to negotiate their own wages with whomever they are being paid from, then there shouldn't be a problem. There's no conflict of interest there. So allowing municipalities to set minimum wage laws is going to hurt young people. It's going to hurt the least skilled among us. It's going to hurt businesses that just want to hire people. And I urge you to no vote on the bill.
Thank you, Representative Winkler. Representative Sandridge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I stand in opposition of this bill, but I do stand in favor of the title, Local Control of Minimum Wages. Really, local control should mean letting the free market decide what the wage should be, whether it's low, whether it's high, letting the business owner decide whether it's low, whether it's high. Now, I may not like what Representative Wiss makes per hour as an attorney, probably more jealous, but that's what the free market decides. So, I want a little test. Anybody know what the minimum wage is at this time as our state? 20? The true minimum wage is $0, because that's what you're going to get after you get fired from the minimum wage going up. So I stand in opposition. Thank you.
Okay, Representative Humphrey, you were next. Are you not coming up? Okay. Representative Williams, are you okay? Okay, Representative Leonard.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I rise in opposition to this. As our representative just before us said, this is about local control, and I see the incredible irony of some of the points that have been made in favor of this bill, and I think of this just removes the prohibition for local government to set the minimum wage. It's just, there's an artificial prohibition imposed by the state, and this is just permissive. It's only if the local governments want it, and the local governments are elected by officials, so why not do this? And the irony here is that, of course, all this permissiveness is about a mandate by government. And so here we are arguing about, shouldn't local governments who are elected by the people be able to determine the minimum wage that an employee and employer can't determine for themselves because the government has artificially mandated this price fixing. And I see the irony so thick here. Others have said it much better than I. On these minimum wage jobs are for kids to be able to get into the workforce, earn a wage that unfortunately they can't negotiate for themselves, and then be able to get their work so that they never have to go back to a minimum wage again. And part of the unintended consequences of setting a minimum wage is that as it goes higher and higher, it cuts out more of these 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds that should be getting these wages, but now they're not worth the effort and the cost by the employer. So the employer has to look to older, more experienced people in order to pay these, and it keeps those people away from getting better jobs. Minimum wage economically doesn't work for those who it's supposed to help. And by price fixing by the government into the workforce, it hurts employers, and most importantly, it hurts the employees. So I would rise in opposition to this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No worry, members, I don't have another amendment, so I'll just speak to the bill. You know, I think it's very interesting that we want to allow politicians in localities to be able to interfere in the wage negotiations between an employer and an applicant. How generous of this chamber to let politicians who have nothing to do with the running of that business or the terms of employment, how generous of us to allow them to interfere and make a decision that an employer and an applicant should be making themselves. You know, a lot of my colleagues have come up here and have already echoed, you know, a few points. And the fact is, these minimum wage laws, and by allowing localities to potentially increase these laws, will hurt and adversely affect the people that this bill purports to be helping. Low-skilled, inexperienced people are in effect currently, under Colorado law, they're currently barred from being able to provide their labor to an employer. Some of these individuals don't have experience, they're not able to produce at a certain level, therefore the state of Colorado says, you know what, you're not going to be able to work. And that's unfortunate. We are essentially making it illegal for people to work because they may not be able to get that job at $12 an hour. And that's just a fact, ladies and gentlemen. In order for businesses to actually be profitable, they either have to raise their prices, which will increase the cost of living, or they have to cut costs. And what we're seeing right now is we're seeing a lot of automation. We're seeing businesses actually fold. We're seeing businesses cut down on hours or employees. Or as my colleague, Representative Leonard, pointed out, they're giving those jobs and more hours to people that are more experienced. That's a problem, especially when these individuals who are not working, who are not getting on the first rung of that economic and job ladder, are unable to get experience. Therefore, they're not going to be able to get a better job that pays more than the minimum wage. And so this is just bad policy on its face, and it's unfortunate that we can't allow individuals to be able to actually negotiate a wage that they can negotiate for themselves. And I ask for a no vote on this bill, and thank you very much.
Representative Melton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Glad we got through a lot of that, because I've heard these arguments over and over again about the minimum wage. So let's talk about it. Yes, I heard that NFIB doesn't like the bill. Well, you know who likes the bill? Workers. That's who likes the bill. And workers aren't just kids who are getting their first-time job. In fact, 94% of minimum wage workers are above the age of 30. So we're not talking about some kid with an after-school job or somebody that's just trying to get an entry-level position. We're talking about people who have kids, who have families, who are trying to make a living wage. That's who we're talking about. I keep hearing about the loss of jobs and how this just won't work for cities. In fact, I can't even believe I heard that we're trying to save cities from themselves. Well, members, 34 cities across the country have a higher minimum wage than their state's minimum wage. And 3 of those cities are the largest cities in the country: New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, San Francisco, Kansas City, St. Louis. These aren't small towns. These are cities that are actually working with businesses to develop an economic plan that works for them. What a bold idea. And I hear that so many of these jobs can be automated because we raised the minimum wage. Members, those jobs more than likely were going to be automated, but there are still so many that need to have a livable wage, like home care workers, like the home care workers we heard come to committee and talk about how they take care of our elderly or our sick or our infirmed. But let's get off of this conversation, because that's not what this bill is. This bill does not raise the minimum wage. It just allows for local municipalities to be able to determine what is best for their city. It allows them to work with their business communities to determine where the right fit is. And maybe there is no fit. Maybe it's to leave it where the state's minimum wage is. This is permissive. And lastly, it doesn't leave this only in the sole hands of local elected officials. This allows for ballot initiatives for the voters to be able to decide. And if the voters don't like it, guess what? It won't happen. So, members, let's quit talking about what this bill isn't. Let's deal with what this bill is. This bill is about local control, so that way localities can help their constituents with whatever problem they're having in terms of cost of living in that part of the state. Members, I urge an aye vote.
Representative Liston.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, first of all, members, I made a mistake. I normally do not ever make a mistake, but I own up to my mistake. This bill was heard in local government, not business affairs. I had Monday morning, whatever. So this bill was heard in local government. With that being said, I'm still opposed to the bill. Let me give you a couple, 3 reasons. I'm glad that Representative Melton mentioned San Francisco, New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago. No, they're doing okay, Representative Melton. But number one, I don't know if I would want to live there. But those are also very, very expensive cities. You go to New York, and it is sky high. You go to San Francisco, most people can't afford to live there. Part of the reason why is they have such high wages. It drives up the cost of everything. The cost of housing in New York City and San Francisco is sky high. Pardon the pun. So once again, the very people that we're trying to help are going to get hurt. Representative Melton said that 94% of the people are 30 and older. That may be true, Representative Melton. I don't know. I won't dispute that. But once again, if we make this minimum wage in these cities that want to do this, like Seattle, those people who are trying to get that job are going to be hurt as well, whether you're 18 or you're 31 or 35. If you're trying to get in and get that job, whether it's your first job or your second job, you won't be able to get it. So what this bill really does is it takes that component between the employer and the employee that normally negotiate their wages, and puts the heavy hand of government in between and says, whether it's a ballot initiative or the city council, that you will set the minimum wage at $15 or $16 or $18 an hour. So those people are ultimately going to get hurt. Why not let the employee and the employer go ahead and negotiate that contract between themselves, just like a lot of teachers do and a lot of employees and employers do already. You know, it was said, Representative Melton, thanks for making my point, is that the home health care worker was making $10.25 an hour, plus or minus, whatever. Sitting right next to her was an employer who was offering and said that she voluntarily, through her landscape business, she voluntarily pays her employees some $17, $18 an hour. My first question is, no offense to the home health care workers, because I know they're good people, but I'd be applying with that landscape person to say, hey, I think if I can move people around, I can also move sod and whatever around, and I'll make 60, 70, 80% more. So why not let them negotiate, that employer and that employee? Let's get the government out of it and have direct negotiations like we should have already. So with all due respect, I know what the people want, but this is bad policy. And if the people of Seattle want to do it and start losing jobs and start earning less, that's fine. But let's don't impose this on the businesses and the citizens of Colorado, even if it's in a locality. With all due respect, I urge a no vote.
Thank you, Representative Buck.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I have to tell you that one of my favorite legislators, Representative Brian Del Grosso. How many people remembered him? And can you imagine all the checks that he signed for his pizza business? And he would be right here today to tell you that at least 85%, 90% of the cost of doing business is labor. And I don't know how many representatives have actually signed the front of a check. I have. But I have to tell you, I don't think we know what's best. Again, we get our noses in thinking government knows what's best. They don't know what's best, and I do not think we should be getting our noses in between the employer and the employee. So I ask for a no on this bill. Thank you.
Representative Singh.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to offer Amendment L003 and ask to be properly displayed.
The amendment is properly before us. Please proceed. Representative Singh.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no doubt this probably will be voted down. However, this makes a point to what this bill does. It really does increase the use of technology in Colorado. A lot of our large corporations are really going to appreciate this bill because they invest in things like automation. They invest in driverless cars that are going to replace Uber drivers and taxi drivers and Lyft drivers. And in fact, because this is a local control bill, some of these corporations will actually invest more heavily in certain cities that do this. For example, Colorado Springs might be renamed Boeing. So there's going to be a lot of benefit to these corporations that build this kind of technology. But let me bring it back to a point that Representative Melton made.
Representative Singh, the chair is having questions around whether this rules underneath the title. I'm going to call a recess. House is back in order. Chair rules this does not fit underneath the title. Representative Singh, do you have something else you'd like to share with us?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. But to the bill, seriously, folks, this bill will definitely help out our large corporations that invest in technology. And to Representative Melton's point earlier, when he said this is not just about those teenagers who are getting this first job. It's not just about retirees trying to supplement their income. I agree with that. This bill is about everyone. So if this passes, everyone who has a minimum wage job is on the chopping block. Everyone who has a minimum wage job will be on the chopping block for automation. I urge a no vote on this bill.
Representative Salazar.
We should probably look up above us, make sure that the sky isn't falling with this particular bill, because it's not. Much to the point of some of my colleagues here, you know, it's really interesting about the statements here is this heavy-handed government. This heavy-handed government, declaring that local governments can have their own minimum wage. Well, you know what we did in 2016? We ran a minimum wage ballot initiative. You remember that? Remember we're going to raise minimum wage to $12 an hour here in the state of Colorado? It passed by 55.36% of the voters. That's not heavy-handed government. That's government saying, hey, look, you guys want minimum wage or don't you? And that's exactly what can happen here with this bill, is local governments can decide to run ballot initiatives. County governments can decide to run a ballot initiative. Municipalities can decide to run a ballot initiative and have the voters decide if they want to increase minimum wage. That is the least heavy-handed part of government that we have, is a ballot initiative. So I don't quite get this argument. And guess what didn't happen after 2016? Automation. In fact, Colorado has the best economy and fastest growing economy in the United States with a ballot initiative raising our minimum wage. People are moving here. Businesses are moving here. There was no decline in business filings. It's all increased with the ballot initiative raising minimum wage. So maybe we should look up at the sky to see if it's falling, because it's not. It's not at all. This just allows local governments who know what's happening, like in Telluride, Crested Butte, or even in the San Luis Valley, to decide if they want to raise minimum wage. And they could do it through the voters if they want. Frankly, I'm a little shocked at the amount of some of the rhetoric against this bill. I mean, some of the stuff we've heard here today is 19th century rhetoric. We're in the 21st century. This idea that minimum wage is illegal, or what we should do is we should just contract with people. Let's just get rid of minimum wage altogether and contract with people, we heard people say up here. You know what happened back in the 1800s and 1900s when that happened? Mass discrimination. Massive discrimination. Massive pay disparities. Like there's no denying that history. And we're still trying to recuperate from it. So this whole idea of bringing back 19th century ideas, that's kind of scary. We're in the 21st century, 2018. There's 2018. We should probably all join up with each other in this century instead of bringing back 19th century ideologies. That's kind of scary, and it should be scary for people out there. Let's just let local governments decide that if they want to raise minimum wage if they want. I rise in strong support.
Representative Singh.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Salazar, you convinced me. I think we should probably vote yes on this bill. Let me tell you why. You brought up the 19th century. That's actually what did it for me. If you remember FDR, all the heavy hand of government he placed actually made the Great Depression great.
Representative Singh.
In fact,
this heavy-handed of government is asking you to please speak to the bill.
Yes, ma'am. So to the bill, although you didn't call down Representative Salazar, however, I just want to make a point based on what I just heard. The point is, if we let politicians decide the local minimum wage, Weld County will get all those businesses. So I urge a yes vote on this bill. If politicians get to decide what minimum wage is in these local governments, I know Weld County won't. So we can live in the 21st century, sir, and you can live in the 19th. Thank you.
Representative Winkler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'll be quick as well. I might change and now vote for this bill because as an economist, I like having lots of data. I want to see where municipalities will raise the minimum wage and the adjacent municipalities will have one type of economy and the municipalities that have changed the minimum wage have another type. I suppose maybe we might want to change the name of this bill to allow self-inflicted harm for local municipalities. I'm all for more data. Let's figure out which municipalities are going to move forward with misguided increases to their minimum wage and have more and more mandates from the government that will not allow people to engage in free negotiation with each other. I have lots of independent contractors. You know why? Because it doesn't make sense to make them employees. And I have lots of independent contractors. They invoice me for whatever they feel is worth. It's a free market. They invoice me for whatever they feel. I don't tell them how much they're allowed to make, and the government does not tell them how much they are supposed to charge. They charge what they feel. We literally call them I feel statements. I would imagine this side of the room would like I feel. It's a lot about feelings. I urge a no vote on the bill. Actually, I'm not sure, because maybe we want some more data on which municipalities are going to make a bad choice.
Representative Leonard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We don't get to have these Economics 101 discussions a lot here. We always are kind of around the edges, but this is a great discussion for the worldview difference of central planning versus free market. And the debate has gotten so narrow as shouldn't we be permissive to allow municipalities the right to determine on their own what wages are set between the employer and the employee. And that is so interesting. It's not, shouldn't we be permissive to be able to allow employers determine their own wages themselves, but it's us central planners who hear from some and then want to make mandates and prohibitions on all businesses. Now, these are the businesses that do write the checks out. It's not the government that creates jobs, right? It's the government that allows the businesses to be able to be as free as they can to hire whom they want, when they want, for what they want. But these kind of mandates, just a continuation of an age-old fallacy of price setting between employer and employees, limits the pool of employees to be able to work for an employer. And remember, the employer only wants to service the needs of the customer. That's their only job. They know that. It's only to bring goods and services into the marketplace that are demanded by customers, by us citizens. And as they strive to do that, and then at the other hand, the government is there saying, no, I only want you to provide those goods and services along the terms that I, the government, think are necessary, that these are the social goals that we're trying to enforce. That's the irony here of having a central planning body, philosophy I should say, be able to say, but we want permissiveness so that the voters even can vote local government on what Burger King can charge their wages. How ironic on being able to have the permissiveness. One other point I'd like to make, for those of you that do have businesses, that may pay wages, whether minimum or near minimum wages, there's only so much money that a business owner can spend for labor. And if some employees, when the minimum wage increases, then that amount of money still is available, but now it has to go for fewer people. There is a process that an employer does say, I either need more work out of the employees I have because I'm going to pay them more, because I have to get rid of that lowest employee because I can't afford to make 20 checks equal the same amount of money that now the government is telling me that I can only afford to pay 19. So somebody has to go in order for me to pay more. And when that comes to a ballot, you can always have people say, yes, I vote for a higher minimum wage, because they don't think they're going to be the one that when the music stops, they're going to lose their job. And they're going to have to move on to another business that can somehow afford them. But when 20 people want their wages increased because the government mandates that, then it has to give somewhere. And I think many people, when they central plan these kind of bills, think that there's just an unlimited amount of money, that somehow by increasing wages, that increases the revenue that an employer can receive, or there's some pot that the employer is taking home this massive amount of profit, and we're regulating as legislators that profit needs to be less and needs to be shared more with the employers. And I don't know how many are in call it the hotel restaurant management business, but where there's the most employees at the lowest levels. Those are the ones, especially restaurants. How many restaurants will operate in a negative? That the owner will feed the restaurant to pay for the payroll of the employees in order to keep the business going, even though it's not making enough revenue. And this just puts more and more pressure on those industries that hire the most. There's no possible way that a statistic can be that the most people that are getting minimum wage are those that have kids and are the single wage earner of the family. No possible way. Not with all the lowest people being those that are the teenagers and those just entering the workforce, because that's what these wages are all about. So, folks, I urge you to vote no on this. I appreciate the discussion that we get to have about the actual effects of minimum wage and drawing up our lowest and newest workers. So for the sake of all those that we want to be able to include into the workforce, let's vote no on this, and let's allow the free market to be able to have more minimum wage. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Is there any further discussion? Representative Melton.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'm glad we had this great debate and this great conversation about the minimum wage down here. Just to clear up just one thing, the minimum wage does not reduce the number of jobs. It does not hurt your economy. In fact, when we raised the minimum wage just this last time as a state, it was already projected that would increase our economic excuse me, that would benefit our economy $22.1 billion. And that was just from the last increase. So we don't necessarily see that. But again, that's not this bill. This bill doesn't raise the minimum wage 1 cent. So members, again, I stand up for local control in this bill, and I ask for an aye vote. Wakanda forever.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on Representative Covarrubias?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As you're learning and as you're gaining skills in the workplace, that's how you make more money. You start at the bottom, and the incentive to learn more and to do more is the money. If you're starting out on the bottom rung and after 6 months you've attained some more skills, you can negotiate for a higher wage. After a year or two, you've gained more skills and knowledge and you can negotiate for a higher wage. One thing I will say, friends, is who is John Galt?
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1368? Seeing none. Seeing Representative Danielson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a few things, folks, to clarify what the bill actually does and to urge your aye vote again for all the hardworking Coloradans out there in the state. This isn't a mandate. Actually, what we have right now is the heavy hand of the state government standing in between local governments from being able to decide what they see best for their own communities. It removes the barrier to allow those local jurisdictions to make the decision for themselves. Do you realize that it costs twice as much to live in Boulder County as it does to live in Bent County? They're different. And I know that you all know the differences of the state. Each has their strength, but we should allow them to determine what best suits the residents in their local communities. And this isn't about kids getting an entry-level job in the summertime. The average age of a minimum wage worker is 35 years old, and 88% of those who earn the minimum wage are over the age of 20. Unfortunately, the reality is for many, many families that they are having to raise their kids, put a roof over their heads, and do everything that needs to be done within that household on the minimum wage. And these folks work hard. We're not only talking about restaurant workers and fast food workers. We're talking about those who care for our older and disabled loved ones. We're talking about people that provide critical services for us all across the state. And they earn the minimum wage. So we can't just say that this is for kids in the summertime to gain some much needed experience. That's the reality for a lot of us. But the other reality is we're talking about primary breadwinners in households in every community across the state. And whether you live in Pitt King County, Morgan, Weld, Logan, Denver, whatever, Jefferson, your local residents know what they need to be able to live where they work and thrive. I urge an aye vote. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Representative Danielson. Any further discussion on House Bill 1368? Seeing none. The question before us, members, is the passage of House Bill 1368. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those in favor, no. No. House Bill 1368 passes. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over House Bill 1318 one day.
Seeing no objection, House Bill 1368 will be laid over one day upon request of the...
1318.
How about 1318 will be laid over one day upon request of the Majority Leader. Mr. Randall, let's go ahead and read the title for House Bill 1320.
House Bill 1320, Representative Pomona, Senator John, concerning reduction of regulation of large market taxi cab service from regulation as a common carrier to regulation as a motor carrier of passengers.
Representative Pabon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I move House Bill 1320 and the Transportation and Energy Committee report.
To the committee report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And for those of you who've been following this bill, you know that that is now the bill. What this bill says, or what this Finance Committee report says, which is now the bill, is essentially that large market taxi cab services should have some flexibility in their ability to compete with the rest of the transportation market, TNCs, limousines, other types of transportation services. What this bill does is recognizes the changing market of our transportation industry and gives those large market taxi cab services the ability to compete with other folks in the transportation space. So this came out of the committee unanimously. I want to thank the chairwoman and chairman, chairwoman and vice chairwoman for their time and energy, and ask for an aye vote on the Finance Committee, on the Transportation Committee report.
Is there any further discussion on the committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Transportation Committee report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The report is adopted. To the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And as I said, the Finance Committee, or the Transportation and Energy Committee report is the bill. It asks for an aye vote.
Any further discussion on House Bill 1320? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1320. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. House Bill 1320 is adopted. Mr. Randall, please read the title of House Bill 1361.
House Bill 1361, Representatives Exum and Valdez, Senator Williams, concerning expanded eligibility for veteran of the Vietnam War specialty license plate.
Oh, okay.
Representative.
I need my notes.
Please hold. Representative Exum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1361 and the Transportation and Energy Committee report.
To the committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the committee report, I move Amendment L002 and ask that it be displayed.
The amendment has been moved and displayed to the amendment. Representative Exum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, we amended the committee report for the recognizing the Vietnam veterans' license plate in their service. Many serving in our military were in Vietnam past the declaration that the war had ended, and to take care of a number of these issues to assist with the transition, we moved that date from April 30th and substitute to July 1. And that is the amendment to the committee report, and ask for your aye vote.
Further discussion on L002. Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of L002. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. L002 is adopted. To the committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I ask for an aye vote on the committee report on the changes that we made.
Any further discussion on the committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Transportation Committee report as amended. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Committee report is adopted. To the bill. Representative Valdez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The bill extends the date of the individual eligible for Vietnam veteran military license plates for 2 years, and ask for your aye vote. And I want to thank all our Vietnam veterans and all our veterans, and welcome home.
Any further discussion on House Bill 1361? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1361. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no. House Bill 1361 is adopted.
Mr. Randall, please read the title to House Bill 1362.
House Bill 1362 by Representative Martin concerning the membership expansion by the Colorado Task Force on Drunk and Impaired Driving.
Representative Arndt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1362. There is no committee report.
To the bill.
Thank you very much. Members, this bill was heard in the Transportation Committee, and it seems so obvious to me that I perhaps was remiss in not describing the task force more. So I know it's getting late, but I would like to remind you that the mission of the Colorado Task Force on Drunk and Impaired Driving is to support the prevention, awareness, enforcement, and treatment of drunk and impaired driving in Colorado through strong partnerships with the public, the private, and nonprofit organizations. This is not a committee where we set the impairment levels, nor is it a technical medical committee. However, it is a collaboration with the Department of Transportation, State Patrol, Department of Revenue, Liquor Enforcement, State Court Administrator's Office, Public Defender's Office, and so on and so forth. Association of Chiefs of Police, peace officers, family members of drunk or impaired driving, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, the beverage retailers, the beverage distributors, the beverage manufacturers. And what we're striving to do in this bill is add 3 members to the task force to true up the alcohol representatives with the marijuana representatives. So we're asking for 3 new members to an all-voluntary, completely free, no fiscal, no task force. It is a big one. It's 25. This would take it to 28. But there are a lot of subgroups that do the real work and the report back to the major task force. So if you don't like expanding government, vote for this bill, because what it doesn't expand government, but what it does is expands community participation in a voluntary task force that's working well for Colorado. And I have the stats on how we've brought down drunk driving in Colorado, and now we're going to start working on impaired driving. I do have one amendment that I'm bringing myself, which is L001. And I'd like to ask that it be displayed.
And L001 is properly displayed. Please proceed.
Thank you very much. Members, this simply says that the 3rd member that we're adding, instead of being named by CDOT, is being named by the Department of Revenue MED division. So it's just a different department who gets to name the member. And I ask for an aye vote on this amendment, L001.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on L001? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. L001 passes. Any further discussion on the bill? Representative Arndt.
I think this is a great bill. It comes from the task force themselves. If you haven't been to the task force, I sincerely ask you to do that. Our task force serves as a model for others in the country, and what we're trying to do is make sure that people on the roads are safe, and I would ask for an aye vote on this bill.
Thank you. Any further discussion on 1362? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. 1362 passes. Yes, Mr. Randall, let's read the title for House Bill 1297.
House Bill 1297, Representatives Winter and Pedersen, Senator Donovan, concerning a comprehensive plan to proactively address the anticipated impacts on Colorado of global climate change.
Representative Winter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move for the passage of House Bill 1297 and passage of the Appropriations Committee report.
We move House Bill 1297 and the Appropriations Committee report.
Okay. To the committee report.
She's very technical.
The Appropriations Committee merely added the J amendment to fund this bill, and I urge a yes vote.
Okay. Any further discussion on the Appropriations Committee report? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The Appropriations Committee report passes. To the bill. Representative Winter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This bill is about preparing our state for the inevitable. This year we've had less snow than we have had in a long time. We are going to see unprecedented fires this summer. We are going to see our state burning down, and we're not ready for that. We are not prepared for the fires we're going to see, the floods we're going to see, the hail we are going to see. And basically what this does is allocate some resources so that we are acknowledging that climate change is real, it's happening, it's going to have impact on our economy, it's going to have impact on our businesses, it's going to have impact on tourism, on agriculture, and we need to be ready. Climate change is real. Let's actually look forward-facing on how we can prepare as a state, and I urge a yes vote.
Thank you, Representative Pedersen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, this is a very important bill for our state. We are continuing to see an increase in natural disasters, floods, fires. Already, we're trying to increase our capacity to deal with the fires that are inevitably going to come this summer. We need to work together at a state level to help our local communities, especially in our rural communities, who don't have the resources to actually work on a plan, an action plan on how to help their communities deal with climate change. This came out of the governor's climate change action plan. It's going to help us with our resiliency as a state and is incredibly important for the future for Coloradans and for our economy. And I ask for your support.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Representative Sane.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And members, I would urge a no vote on this bill. If you look at page 4, it says the governor shall create a position within the executive branch that must include the term climate change in its title. Let me also point you to an appropriation of $432,000. $432,000 to study something that's been studied to death and have a climate change czar. That money should have gone to transportation this year. I urge a no vote.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1297? Seeing none. Representative
Okay,
Pedersen.
just one last point, Madam Chair. Thank you. What this is doing is, this is really helping our local communities deal with their unique situations on how they're going to deal with climate change. So this is absolutely a great investment for our state. It's about taking proactive steps to support our communities and plan and prepare for climate change, and especially our small rural communities. I ask for your support.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1297? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. House Bill 1297 passes. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we rise and report.
You have heard the motion. Seeing no objection, the committee will rise and report.
The House will come to order. Mr. Randall, please read the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Madam Speaker, your committee of the whole big city report as I'll just carry the following touch bills, being the second reading of the recommendations are on. House Bill 1297 is amended. House Bill 1320 is amended. House Bill 1361 is amended. House Bill 1362 is amended. House Bill 1368 passed under Gross Place County of third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 68 is amended. Passed under Revised Place County of third reading and final passage. House Bill 1318, Senate Bill 156, Senate Bill 200 laid over until April 24, 2018, retaining the place on the calendar. House Bill 1179 laid over until April 25, 2018, retaining its place on the calendar.
Representative Crumthorpe. All right. You have heard the motion. There are no amendments at the desk. Mr. Randall, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote on the report of the Committee of the Whole. Representative Catlin, Exum, Hamner, Humphrey, Liston, Michelson, Janae, Williams, and Young. Please vote. Representative Michelson, Janae, and Representative Exum. Representative Michelson, Janae is excused. Please close the machine. With 43 yes votes, 20 no votes, and 2 excused, the report of the Committee of the Whole is adopted. Announcements and introductions. Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Public Healthcare and Human Services. We will not be meeting today, but we never meet on Mondays, but we will be meeting on Friday. One of my least favorite things, but it is that time of the year. But you have been forewarned. House Bills 1405, 1407, and 1411 will all be heard on Friday. We look forward to seeing you then, as we are needed back on the floor at 4 p.m. on Tuesday. So we will have a shortened schedule on Tuesday, a little bit longer on Friday. Pack a lunch.
Further announcements or introductions, Representative Arns.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Ag, Livestock, and Natural Resources Committee, 1:30 today, room 107, as usual. We're going to hear Senate Bill 38, it's a hemp bill. Senate Bill 205, it's a hemp bill. And Senate Bill 218, which is the annual water projects bill. Thanks.
Representative Everett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I asked to be excused this Thursday between 2:30 and 5. I got approval from both the House Minority Leader and the Majority Leader.
Okay, you're excused. Further announcements or introductions? Representative Pabon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members of the House Finance Committee and those who are tracking our bills on the House Finance Committee, and even sponsors, this is going to be important for you. We are going to change the order of the bills just slightly. So first up will be House Bill 1377 by Representatives Coleman and Pedersen. Next up will be House Bill 1378 by Representatives Danielson and Buckner, followed by House Bill 1400, the Majority Leader and Representative McKean, and then following that will be House Bill 1392 by Kennedy and Rankin, and then we will follow the order of the calendar from there on out. So, sorry, Representative Hooton, you're not first on the Finance Committee, but you're not paying attention, so you don't care. All right, we'll see you there, 1:30.
Further announcements or introductions? Representative Young.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, we will be starting House Appropriations after we adjourn here probably around about 12:15 over in LSBA. I am changing the order slightly. I'm moving House Bill 1247, House Bill 1402, and Senate Bill 007 to the end of the calendar, but they will be heard today, but just at the end of the calendar. See you in a few minutes over in LSBA, members. Thank you.
All right, and on House Bill 1402, Representative Young will replace me as a co-prime sponsor, but I will still be a co-sponsor. Further announcements or introductions? Representative Willett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I have a kind of a fun introduction or announcement here. I have maybe the most unlucky man in Colorado, perhaps in the world, from my district and close to Representative Thurlow's district. You may have heard this on BBC or NPR. Dylan McWilliams was just bitten by a shark while swimming off of Kauai. He survived. He's got some scars. But you might remember him last year when a black bear grabbed him by the head and drug him out of his sleeping bag down by Durango and attacked him. You might remember the debates on bear hunting bills. But so shark attack this year, bear attack last year, and believe it or not, before that he was bit by a rattlesnake when he was a teenager. Dylan is only 20 years old, so he's had quite a full life.
Further announcements and introductions. Representative Lay.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Bill 1404, Michelson Janae's rape bill at sentencing will be on the Judiciary Committee calendar tomorrow morning. The Judiciary Committee tomorrow will actually go from adjournment through whenever we're called back to the floor of the House. So no lunch nor rest for the weary on Judiciary tomorrow. Thank you.
All right, further announcements or introductions? Any further announcements or introductions? Madam Majority Leader Becker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House stand in recess till 1 o'clock today.
All right, seeing no objection, the House will stand in recess until 1 p.m. today.